Back on another Connection show here on TKO8 Television. Dennis King, thanks for joining us this week. We try to have different organizations and individuals come in on the show each Monday to talk about what's important, hopefully around our broadcast area. A lot of things we learn that we don't know about, and hopefully we disseminate that information out to our viewers out there, and we hope that you enjoy the show. Stay with us. Be back in a moment. We've got a gentleman here from the Harrison Fire Department to talk about something important to all of us.
Sam Alexander Pharmacy has expanded and is now offering many additional products and services. Their new pharmaceutical compounding area allows them to create products to fit the unique needs of a customer. They also have added Spinco orthotic shoes and sandals, Dr. Comfort diabetic shoes, baby gifts by Aiden and Anais, and toys by Melissa and Doug. Stop in today and let them help you with any of your specialty pharmaceutical needs. Sam Alexander Pharmacy, your local Health Mart pharmacy in Harrison.
Here's another satisfied client from Dental Creations of Harrison.
My husband and I both needed to have dentures. I had looked online and we saw a picture of Wanda, just something about her. I thought this is the place we're going to do. And I called in and spoke with Dave, and he was just tremendous. Answered every single question the first call and told us what our copay would be. It was just an awesome experience.
Dental Creations on the square in Harrison, next to the Big Red Boot.
Back on Connection here on TKO8 Television. Our first guest in the studio for the show today is Clint Nichols. Clint, thank you for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Hadn't seen you in a while. It's good to have you come in. We've talked many times.
Yes.
And of course, Clint with the Harrison Fire Department, and he's been there for a long time. And we're not going to talk about ages here or anything.
Thank goodness.
But we do appreciate you coming in. Maybe this time of the year we don't think about fires as much, particularly house fires, as we do maybe in the winter months and so forth, but they happen all the time. We concentrate a little bit more on grass fires maybe in the summer months when it gets real dry and so forth. But I didn't realize, and I was just looking at this, that fire in general kills more people annually than all other natural disasters. That's amazing.
It's something we need to continue working on all the time. And you're right, year-round, not just in October when we talk about it. Mm-hmm. It's all the time. You know, the summer activities when we're outside, the barbecuing, the burn pits, the stuff like that, we have to be careful. Now, we've had a good summer so far. It's mid-July and it's still green, so we're very lucky about that. But something we always have to be careful of, and especially if you're an adult and kids are out there playing around the barbecue grill, or a lot of people are really into these burn pits right now, but building a little fire at night. And the code calls them recreational fires. And truly, in the city of Harrison, we're allowed to have those. You don't even have to get a burning permit for one if we keep them below, 3 feet by 3 feet and 25 feet from any structure. You don't even have to get a burn permit unless we have a burn ban on.
Right.
And we honor, if the county judge sets a burn ban, obviously we honor that, and we don't allow any open burning at that point. But yeah, a lot of people, we get a lot of requests for recreational burning. And also have to burn natural products in them. You never can do any kind of man-made type stuff. So and a lot of people ask about, does it need to be a pit? Not necessarily. Just needs to have no brush or anything around it. And like I say, 25 feet from a structure. That's the main thing about that. Okay. But absolutely, anytime you have open flame, barbecue grills, anything like that, you've got to be careful with them. And a lot of people forget they'll get a fire extinguisher, and I check fire extinguishers in commercial property all the time. Got the tag, well, we buy them at home, and they may be 15 years old, and we don't know how old they are. So if you've had it about 10 years, hey, go to the hardware store, just get you another one. Or if you want one to refill, call the extinguisher companies, but they're awful handy to have around. And if that's too much fire for you, call your local fire department. So.
Speaking of fire extinguishers, all businesses, I guess, are required to have, and we have a couple of them here, and they come by, I guess, once a year. They come by and inspect them and give us a small bill on it, but it's not a big deal. But to make sure that they're still operational and that the content is still good in case a fire did take place.
2 fires stopped last month in our city with fire extinguishers.
Really?
2 fires. So they are very helpful. When you need them, they're very helpful. So.
The thing about it is most fires are avoidable, and I know Clint will talk about that, because sometimes we just don't use our head or just don't think at the time until it's too late and the thing's already started.
Absolutely. Maintenance on things is a big thing. Of course, I'm the inspector, and there's a lot of things that, just like you said about the fire extinguishers, that people are supposed to check annually, but in their own home or business. We had a fire here just the other day with the little fans in the bathrooms, and you start smelling it, or if it's dirty, get it maintained. That's a big thing. It's a lot cheaper than a structure fire, obviously. No one wants that.
Something else that, again, maybe we don't think about this particular time of the year, but a maintenance thing is your furnace in the fall. I mean, to clean those, put new filters and make sure it doesn't have any lint or debris in there before you fire up that furnace.
Absolutely. We get several calls each time when the cold snap eventually hits, which we're getting ready for, hopefully, another month or time. I'm ready for it. But absolutely dust and stuff on there. And you can, of course, some of that's unavoidable, but clean filter, getting it maintained. A lot of these commercial properties are required to do certain things, and of course their inspectors check it, different inspectors check it, but in our homes we don't have those inspectors following behind us to look at those things. So take a time, look around. Especially if you're having trouble with something, get it maintained in advance, because we really that'll help you in the long run, without a doubt. Just like smoke detectors.
Yes.
Maintain those. Get the vacuum cleaner up there, make sure this doesn't have a bunch of lint and stuff in it. If it's over 10 years old, it's time to go. Get another one. I always recommend, if you buy a smoke detector, put the date on the back with one of those permanent pins. Especially now, you can get those 10-year smoke detectors. You can get one with a battery that lasts 10 years. So you really guarantee I won't remember 10 years ago when I put something up. So right on the back of those, that way if you have any question about it, you've got it right there. So
Clint, maybe just briefly tell, what are some of the things that you see cause-wise of house fires through the year? It doesn't matter what season. What are some of the areas?
Well, cigarettes are still an issue. A cigarette ash can drop down in a cushion. It can sit there for literally hours and continue to build up heat, and everything gets to finally its ignition point, and then you have flame. And this could have been, somebody could have smoked it and been gone for hours. Outside fires, we've seen that burned up to the side of the house. Obviously if there's no one around, especially now we don't see as much of this outside burning. Of course, trash burning isn't allowed anymore anywhere in the state. A lot of people think we have all these codes and regulations for just inside the city. Well, actually, 99% of our codes are state codes, and you see people still burning trash out in the county, especially during when it's real dry, and it'll burn up to something and catch a barn on fire, a house on fire, something like that. Those volunteer departments, and we still have some of them, but they do a very good job on those grass fires, as with a lot of things they do. Structure fires too.
So see, I think a lot of people maybe don't understand that, because I hear people talk out there in the public quite often, and they'll say, "Boy, I'm sure glad I don't live in the city anymore because I've got a burn barrel." So it's that they can't really do that?
No, you're not allowed, and that actually becomes an EPA standard out in the county.
Okay.
Now we have a city ordinance.
Right.
We've had it for years. You can't burn inside the city, but actually not supposed to have a burn barrel anywhere to burn man-made products. Now, if you're burning twigs and leaves and natural products, that's a whole different thing.
Okay.
But no, you're not supposed to burn man-made
products. Can't dump
products.
trash in a barrel.
Not supposed to. No.
A lot of people out there probably watching the show may think that if you live out in the county, you can do that. It's very important, because it's a state thing. It's not just
absolutely. It's EPA as far as that goes. But as far as fire codes in general, like I said, 99% of our codes are statewide. In fact, if I need some advice or an opinion, I can call the state fire marshal, and he'll look at the same book I'm looking at. Now, we do have a very few city ordinances, like we control burning and stuff, burn permits, inside the city, which you don't have to get a permit in the county like that. But it's still, you have to watch what you burn.
Okay.
But most of those codes that we use, they're statewide.
It's an EPA thing. Just some things that maybe in the house, as he mentioned, cigarettes, of course, candles. People like to burn candles, but a lot of times you leave a candle around. If you've got a pet in the house or something, pet knocks the candle over, and say no more. It's not a good situation. But also children with matches, playing with matches. Something cool about playing with matches when you're a kid, or a lighter. I'm sure that causes some issues.
Yes, and as you know, here in the last few years, they've made it where they can't make lighters that look like
Yes.
certain things and toys and stuff, and all that helps. Lighters have been a big issue over the years. Let me turn this
So
off.
you probably got called there.
Yeah.
Maybe hope it's not a fire.
No. And you're right. We want to talk to our children and really want to work with our children, not only not to play with matches, which is very important, but an exit plan. Children get very, very old, big enough, and we'll let the parents decide when they're big enough. They need to learn 2 ways out of their bedroom. Basically, need to learn to rescue themselves. Houses, we have less house fires in the nation, but they're probably deadlier than they've ever been due to the insulation in our homes. It holds a lot more heat in. We have a lot more plastics, and plastic smoke, as we know, has cyanide gas in it. So it's very deadly. So the best way, has a good working smoke detector and have a fast way to get out, 2 ways to get out if possible, and have a meeting place outside. That seems to be the combination that works and saves lives right there.
You know, I know I've seen through the years in working with the Harrison Fire Department and a lot of different activities, like when they've given away school supplies through the years and stuff like that, where they would have their little smokehouse set up, and they were showing these kids, making it a fun thing to do, but showing them how important it is to have a meeting place, to how to get out of the house. And so that, you know, so many times that you read about it or you see it on television or whatever, where there's a house fire or apartment fire or something, and they don't know where everybody is. They don't know if they're still in there and the smoke is getting them or whatever. It's very important.
Each year we lose parents in this country, firemen, policemen, neighbors running back into fires looking for people that are out. It's very important. And you know, in a stressful situation, it's been proven over and over, you'll do what you're trained to do because you stress, you got the tunnel vision. So if you practice that, if you practice getting up and getting out, crawling below the smoke, 2 ways out, you practice all that in a stressful situation, not only will you have a plan, but you'll fall back on that plan, and your chances of survival greatly increase.
We've got a couple minutes left. Let's talk about what you've just got. You've got some smoke detectors available.
We do have smoke detectors. Each year, the Arkansas Fire Prevention Commission has grants, and we apply. And we got 100 smoke detectors last month. Okay. And went down and picked them up at Little Rock. To get that smoke detector, you call 870-741-6384. That's fire station number 1. Either our part-time secretary will answer or the guys, and they'll set you up with an appointment, and we'll get you. They'll come out and put your smoke detector up. Fantastic. But the important thing about smoke detectors, whether you can afford one or not, if you can afford one, still go out and check yours. Check, you know, I've got kids that are grown now, they're not thinking about smoke detectors. Check those. Check elderly people. Check all those smoke detectors. Friends, family, loved ones. Check those smoke detectors because they save lives. Just around the 4th of July, Springfield had a save with a smoke detector. They were out shooting fireworks, brought the fireworks in, put it in the garage, in the garbage in the garage, caught the house on fire, smoke detector woke them up, saved lives. We've had saves right here in Harrison, Arkansas with smoke detectors.
Yeah,
they work. We've witnessed them work. So.
And so if you do have a smoke detector, remember, first of all, make sure that battery's still good in it. You may have one of the older style. Make sure it's got a tester on it. You can test that battery. Make sure you keep a new battery. Batteries are $1 or $2 a piece, so it's a very inexpensive way to keep you from losing your life.
Placement is very important. Lots of times we'll go in these places and we'll find the front of it open, the battery taken out. They've probably got it next to a fireplace, next to the kitchen. Put them around the bedrooms, at the very least in the hall. If you have children, put them above their beds because kids sleep a lot deeper than we do.
Yes.
So put them there where they can hear them and get as much warning as possible. Believe me, fire's not like on TV. You don't have all this time to run through white smoke. It's dark black smoke. It's down to the floor, and it's deadly. So let's have a plan how to get out and a good working smoke detector.
Very good.
If you can't afford one, call us. We're going to get one out there to you.
That's a good point. So if you're out there in the viewing audience and you need a smoke detector, you can't afford one, call 741-6384. That's the Harrison Fire Department. That's our main building downtown. They'll fix you up. Don't go without one. Make sure you got a working one. Clint, it's always a pleasure having you in. Thanks for coming in, and we do appreciate it. Maybe we'll get together in the fall and kind of remind people about some of the issues as we start kicking those furnaces on and lighting the fireplace.
Absolutely.
Won't need a fireplace right now, though. Clint Nichols with the Harrison Fire Department, thanks for joining us on the first half of the show. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment with Sheriff Mike Moore to talk about a very important event coming up.
Spring has arrived in the Ozarks. This is Brent Carell inviting you to Carell Family Gardens and Gifts in Harrison. Whether you need an entirely new landscape or simply need a rose to brighten up a corner of your backyard, we have a large selection of trees and shrubs. We also have Harrison's largest selection of pottery, from terracotta clay pots to gorgeous glazed pots in every imaginable color, shape, and size. Perhaps you're looking for garden benches, outdoor pillows, fountains, lanterns, or maybe just the right gift for someone? We have an array of home decor and gift items. Maybe you need something for your young children or grandchildren? We carry a full inventory of fun items to create fairy gardens and yard art. Are you ready to garden? We carry all the spring vegetables and seeds you need to get your garden growing, along with compost and fertilizer. As the weather continues to warm, we'll have a dizzying display of blooming annuals, perennials, hanging baskets, ferns, roses, and hydrangeas. Carell Family Gardens and Gifts is your locally owned garden and home store located at the north end of Goblin Drive at Industrial Park Road.
Back on Connection here on TKO8 Television. Dennis King, thanks for joining us on the show this week. We do appreciate it, and hopefully we get good information out to you that perhaps you don't know about each and every week. Our second guest on the show today is no stranger, if you live in Boone County, for sure, Sheriff Mike Moore. We appreciate you coming in, Mike. Thank you so much.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Reason I asked Sheriff Moore to come in today, we've got something coming up on August the 9th that is very important to all of us in Boone County. And so it happens to be a sales tax extension of a current tax, and it goes for law enforcement and to operate our jail facility. Mike, maybe let's just start off, maybe if you would, for the viewing audience, kind of revert back to when this all started and why
sure.
It started, if you don't mind.
Well, back in 2005, 2006, the current jail, or the old jail then, held about 36 people, and it was constantly being overcrowded. The sheriff at that time came to me when I was county judge. We worked together on that, found a committee that would work together, and make a long story short, we got this 10-year sales tax, a quarter of a percent sales tax passed in order to build and maintain a jail. It passed. We built the jail. It's one of the best jails around as far as being effective, being efficient. We didn't really cut corners on things, but we didn't make it fancy either. We made it where it was just going to be a good facility at the lowest cost we could do. And it's a 104-bed jail. And the tax was for 10 years, and then it would have a sunset clause on it, and that sunset is coming up on us quickly. The tax will end December 31st if it's not renewed. So it's important, I think, to understand that this is not a new tax whatsoever. It is a continuation of the tax that we've already had, and I think most people understand that. And it's a quarter of a percent. It's not 25. It's a quarter of 1%. So it's a fairly small tax. One of the reasons that we went with that tax is we felt like it was probably the most fair tax out there. It's one of the most fair to the community. Not only do folks in the community pay the tax, but even people coming through town helps pay the tax. If we have a baseball, softball tournament and families come in, they stay at a hotel and they eat food here, and they pay part of that tax. So it's really diminishes the amount an individual in Boone County has to pay. So that's what we were after. It's worked very well. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. It paid for the jail. We paid it off early. Now it's maintaining the jail. The complete sheriff and jail budget is around $3 million a year. And this produces about $1 million, $1.2 million a year to fund the jail portion of it. So it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. We have a little over $2 million set aside in reserve to use for maintenance on the facility, or also if there's an addition that needs to be built on at some point, which, as full as we stay, that's a possibility. It's something that we don't want to do in a hurry. It just means more employees. It means a lot of different things. A lot of money spent, and we want to prolong that as long as we can. But we're so full that sometimes we have to turn away prisoners, And we just hate doing that. If someone needs to go to jail, we want to be able to accommodate those agencies and bring them to our jail. But, you know, when you're full, you're full. It's a 104-bed jail, and I think this morning when I looked, we had 107. So it's very full. So now it's time to renew the tax, and one of the reasons that we put a sunset clause on that is to give the voters the opportunity to see how the money was spent. And then so when we come back 10 years later and ask for it to be renewed, they would have their confidence that we would do the right thing with the tax dollars.
You know, Mike, maybe right now in the process of talking about this would be a good time to explain to the viewing audience what happened when the legislature enacted Act 570.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. When we built the jail 10 years ago, we thought, man, going from a 36-bed jail to a 104-bed jail is just, you know, we're not going to need space for a long time. That's going to do us for years and years. And like you said, the state passed Act 570, and that changed basically in a short way to put it. It changed the way probation and parole treat their violators. And so, to make a long story short, they go back to prison faster now than they used to. And which is a double-edged sword. It does good, it gets those folks, it teaches them a lesson, it punishes them if they violate their rules. But the other thing that it did is it completely filled up our prison system. And up until this year, we've been between 2,000 and 2,500 people backed up in county jails all over the state. And what that has done is created an overflow in all the county jails. So all the county jails are completely full with inmates that have already been sentenced to prison, and they're waiting to go to a bed in the Department of Corrections. Thankfully, this year, Governor Hutchinson has made some changes where it's down to about 1,500 folks that are backed up in the prisons, or backed up in the county jails, waiting to go to prison. That's helped us some. But, you know, today we still have probably 20 folks in our jail that have been sentenced to prison, but the prison hasn't called to come get them yet or for us to take them down there yet, and so they're taking up bed space in our county jails. These are not folks that we want. These are folks that we're wanting to send to prison. And I know it was brought up recently at one of the forums that, you know, we say we're full, but we have 20 state inmates. Well, that's not by choice. We would love to get rid of those folks so we could put some local folks there that need to be there. But they're waiting to go to prison, and we call on occasion and ask for help, and sometimes they'll take 2 or 3, but we're if we didn't have those 20 in there, you know, we'd be in pretty good shape. But it really put a hurt on us.
You know, Mike, the sad part about it is, you know, we talk about sometimes people are not very happy with the economy, and maybe are, you know, we're not in a recession necessarily, but things are kind of slow economically across the country. Unfortunately, when times are slow economically, that's usually when your population goes up even more, and you see more and more of that. The one good thing about the jail when it was built, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mike, but I recall when this jail facility was built, again, it was built with the basics in need. I mean, you know, we're not wanting them to go to Holiday Inn Express or something. They're there for a reason. But it was set up where if we needed another pod, mm-hmm. it would be relatively inexpensive in comparison to add to this jail. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. When we built the jail, we let the architect know that we wanted one of the aspects that was very important to us is to be able to add on fairly easily. And so we have a section ready to build on now. Now, I haven't called anyone or talked to anyone about cost of an additional pod. It would hold another 25 to 30 prisoners, just because, again, we want to put that off as long as we can. Sure. Because of all the issues that's involved there. But at some point when we have to, it's ready to build on there now.
Another thing that you may not know out there in the viewing audience, and as a taxpayer and as an individual is going to be asked to vote for this renewal of this sales tax on August the 9th, but one of the pods that you have there is set up for the female population. And I didn't realize it until you told them at a forum recently that if you have one female in that pod, then you can't use the rest of it for males. Is that correct?
Yeah, these pods are separated. Originally, it was for misdemeanors, felons, and then females. And inside the female pod, there was a place for misdemeanors and felons. And in a perfect world, that makes a lot of sense. But when you don't have any misdemeanor folks in your jail and they're all felons, it just changes everything. The female pod is, and when we say pod, it's just basically it's a section of the jail that's dedicated to the females. Holds about 25 females. And like you say, if there's one female in that section, then all 25 beds are spoken for, because you can't mix,
Sure.
male and females in the same section of the jail for obvious reasons. So,
Right.
but I don't think we've ever had just one female. There's probably 15 to 16 there most of the time.
And we've talked about that. The mix has changed through the years, unfortunately, not for the good, for the bad. A couple more things we want to hit on before we run out of time. First of all, there's been some question about why does some of the county municipalities that have a police force or a car or somebody, a la Alpena, for instance, Lead Hill, Diamond City, Omaha, why do they have to? Why shouldn't they have to pay when they arrest somebody in that community and put them in the jail? And just explain that real quick.
Well, and state law says that when you arrest someone, whatever agency you have, and says you are to take them to the county jail. And the county jail is to take those prisoners. It's by law we have to take those prisoners unless we can't hold them, unless we're full and we can't. That's really the only reason that we can refuse an inmate. So we're obligated to take those inmates unless we're full. We have the option of charging municipalities per head, per day, money to house those prisoners. When we passed the tax, when we asked the community to pass the tax 10 years ago, we told them that if they would pass the tax, that we would forego charging their cities that per day price. And the reason is we felt like that was being fair to the community. Every single person out there is helping pay for this facility. So why should we go back to their city council and say, you also owe us, per person every day, this is what you're going to have to pay. So we felt like it was the gentleman thing to do. It was the right thing to do, and actually I think it's worked out very well for everybody involved. That I guess the downside of that, and this is not to scare people or to pressure people, but if this tax doesn't pass, I think it's fair that they need to understand what happens if it doesn't pass. Do we shut down a jail? Well, we can't do that. State law says that you shall have an adequate jail. So what we have to do is find revenue somewhere else. The only options that I know of, and the two major options, one is to start charging those agencies per person per day, and it's going to be around $40 a person a day to hold their prisoners, which I looked the other day. It would cost the city of Harrison about $250,000 a year, which is expensive, and also a millage increase. And we feel like that's probably the most unfair way to pay for this jail.
I agree.
We don't want to tax the property owners for this jail. Let's do a continue sales tax.
Well, that's certainly the best way to go. There's no doubt about it. I don't think anybody out there that owns property would want to have a millage tacked on, but we have to have a jail facility. We have to have law enforcement. This sales tax is very important, and I know you hope that everybody gets behind it and we can renew it for another 10 years out there.
Absolutely. This is a good time for our community to come together, say we support our law enforcement here. And I've been getting cards, been getting people's phone calls, saying we're in their prayers, and that means a lot to us.
That does. Mike, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate doing
Thanks
a great job down there. And if you're out there, August 9th is the actual day of the election. Early voting will start about a week before that. So go out there and think about it. Think about what it does for you and for our community, and let's help them out if we can. Thanks for joining us on the Connection Show today. We'll see you again next time.